Let's see how to install Linux Mint alongside Windows 11 for a dual boot setup. The only thing that we're going to need to do this is a USB flash drive. I already have here a USB flash drive, and it's recommended that its size will be at least 32 gigabytes, even though 16 gigabytes is definitely enough as well. The important thing, which is probably even more important than the size of the USB flash drive, is its speed. Generally speaking, the faster it is, the smoother and quicker the Linux Mint installation will be. It doesn't mean that you cannot use an older or slower USB flash drive. You definitely can and it will work, but the installation will take longer and might be a bit more clunky. So we're going to go back to this USB flash drive in a minute, but for the time being, let's put this one aside. And the first thing that we're going to do is to allocate some disk space for Linux Mint. So to do that, inside Windows, right-click here on the Windows Start icon right here. And here I'm going to choose this option, Disk Management. As you can see, in my case, I only have one disk. That's the one that's named Disk 0, and it contains 3 partitions. It has the EFI system partition, whose size is about 200 megabytes. Then it has the C drive, which is the main partition on this disk. And then we also have this smaller partition for Windows recovery. What we're going to do is to shrink a little bit our C drive so that we can free up some space for Linux Mint. And to do that, I'm going to right-click on my C drive. Then I'm going to choose Shrink Volume. We then need to choose by how much we want to shrink our C drive. And of course, the more you shrink, the less disk space Windows will have. But on the other hand, Linux Mint will have more disk space. Now, for a basic installation of Linux Mint, about 20 gigabytes is absolutely enough, and you can get by with only 20 gigabytes. But if you plan to install a lot of software and work with a lot of files on Linux Mint, you might want to allocate a bit more than that. For this demonstration, I'm going to allocate about 30 gigabytes, which are about 30,000 megabytes. So here I'm going to write 30,000. And of course, in your case, you can allocate a bit less or much more than that. Once you are done, click on Shrink. And as you can see, our C drive is now a bit smaller. Its size is a bit less than 90 gigabytes, but we have here this unallocated disk space. And this is the disk space that we will use to install Linux Mint. So we are done with that, and let's close the disk management utility. And now let's open the web browser. And we're going to start by going to linuxmint.com. Okay, just like this, linuxmint.com. And as you can see, the latest available version for Linux Mint at the time of this recording is Linux Mint 22.2, codename Zara. So from here, we're going to click on Download. And as you can see, Linux Mint is offered in several flavors. There is the classic Linux Mint flavor, which uses the Cinnamon desktop. And if we scroll down a bit, we can see that we have other options. We have the XFCE edition, which is a bit lighter and might be a great choice if you are running Linux Mint on a slightly older machine. And then there is also the Mate edition, which is based on GNOME 2. All 3 versions work great, and it really boils down to personal preference. For this demonstration, I'm going to keep it classic, and I'll go with the Cinnamon edition. So let's download. So we can see that the size of the download is about 3 gigabytes, and this will download the Linux Mint ISO file, which we need for the Linux Mint installation. So let's scroll down a bit, and here we can see the download mirrors. As you can see, there are quite a lot of them all over the world, and the idea is that if you choose a mirror that's somewhat closer to your geographical location, then the download might be a bit faster. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go with the first option, which is World. So let's, for example, choose this option, and the Linux Mint ISO file is now being downloaded. So this is quite a big file. It's about 3 gigabytes, and it will take a while to download. I'll be back when it's done. Okay, so Linux Mint was downloaded, and we should now be able to find the ISO file we just downloaded in the Downloads folder. So let's open the Downloads folder, and here it is, Downloads. And here we can see our Linux Mint 22.2.iso file. Let's now go back to the web browser, and the next thing we're going to do is go to ventoy.net. Okay, just like this, ventoy.net. This is a great tool to create bootable USB flash drives, and this is the one that we're going to use. So let's click on Downloads, and I am on Windows, so I'm going to choose the first link for Windows, and we're now redirected to SourceForge. And once again, because I am on Windows, I'm going to choose this link, ventoy for windows.zip. So let's click on the link, and we now need to wait for 5 seconds. And now the ventoy installer is being downloaded, and it was downloaded. Let's now go back to our downloads folder, and here we can see our ventoy.zip file we just downloaded. So let's choose this file, then right click on it, and I'm going to choose extract all. I'll uncheck this checkbox, then extract, and the content of the zip archive was extracted. And as you can see, we now have a new folder for ventoy. So here it is, ventoy for Windows. Let's open this folder and also this subfolder. And as you can see here, we have this file, ventoy2disk.exe. This is the file that we're going to use to make our USB flash drive bootable. So we're just about to use this file, but before that, I'm going to plug in my USB flash drive. So let's do that. Let's plug in the USB flash drive. Okay, and I plugged it in. Let's open it in a new tab. So let me choose it from this PC, and here it is, new volume. And as you can see, it was given the name D. Now notice that everything that you have on this disk will be deleted. So if you have anything important here, back it up first. For me, I don't have anything on this disk, so I have nothing to back up. Let's go back to the ventoy folder. And now we can start ventoy2disk.exe. So let's double click on this file, and we need to approve that we want to allow this file to make changes to the computer. And from this drop-down list, we need to choose the USB flash drive we just plugged in. So first, make sure that the letter is the correct one. For me, it is D. This is the letter for my USB flash drive. And in addition, make sure that the size is what you expect. So the size of my USB flash drive is indeed 256 gigabytes. And I also know that this is a SanDisk USB flash drive, so this is a correct disk. Once again, this is a sensitive point because everything on the USB flash drive will be deleted. So make sure that you are choosing the correct one. For me, this is the correct disk, so this is the one that I'm going to choose. Once we made the choice, we can click on Install. So we get a warning that the device will be formatted and all of the data will be lost. This is fine, so I can click on Yes. We're getting an additional warning, so yes again. And now the disk is being formatted for ventoy. This process isn't that long, but it depends on the speed of your USB flash drive. Okay, and it's done, and you can see that ventoy has been successfully installed to the device. Let's click on OK, and you can see that the version of the ventoy installer now matches what we have on our USB flash drive. So we have nothing to update, so we can close the ventoy installer. And we can see that our D drive was renamed to ventoy. We now need to go back to our downloads folder, and now we need our linuxmint.iso file. So let's choose this file, and I'm going to right click on it and copy. We're now going to copy this file to our new bootable ventoy USB flash drive. So let's open another tab, and let's open this PC, and from here I'm going to open my ventoy bootable USB flash drive, and here I'm going to right click and choose paste, and this will paste here the Linux Mint ISO file. So the file is being copied over, and once again, this is one of the things that depend on the speed of your USB flash drive. If your USB flash drive is very fast, this will be done very quickly. If it's slower, it will take a bit longer. Okay, and the ISO file was copied and is now on our ventoy disk. Here is what we need to do next. First, we're going to make sure that we are leaving the USB flash drive plugged in. Next, we're going to restart the computer. Then, while the computer is loading, we need to quickly tap one of the following special keys. Now, this special key that I'm talking about, it differs among different computers. So I cannot know which one will work for you, but usually it's one of the following. It's either Escape, F2, F10, F12, or Delete. So it might take a few tries to figure out the correct one for you. But the idea is that while the computer is loading, you need to quickly tap this special key. So for example, if in your case the special key is F2, then while the computer is loading, you need to quickly tap F2, 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 F2. Now, as I said, there are several options, so you might even want to try to press on several of them at the same time. So for example, you might want to try first Escape and F2, and after that maybe F12 and Delete. And among these options, at least one of them should work. And the idea is that once we do that, once we quickly tap this special key, the computer loads into the boot menu. So instead of loading normally using the Windows bootloader, it will take us to the boot menu, and from this menu we'll be able to manually choose the option we want for the boot. Now, of course, instead of using Windows, we are going to use the new Ventoy bootable USB flash drive. And using this flash drive, we will be able to install Linux Mint. So let's try to do that. Let's restart the computer, and I know that for me the special key is F2. So I'm going to restart, then quickly tap on F2. F2, 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 F2. Let's do that. Let's restart the computer. And now I'm getting ready. Okay, and it finished restarting. F2, 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 F2. Okay, and we got it right. And now we can see our boot manager. And from here we can see several options. Now I want to emphasize that this screen might look differently on your computer. Different computer manufacturers use different firmware, and there is no single unified layout for the boot menu, but usually it's along the lines of what you see here. Now, as you can see, the first option is boot normally, and this will of course boot normally using the Windows bootloader. And here we have a dedicated option for the Windows Boot Manager itself. We then have some other options, and here at the bottom we have this special option, this new option that says EFI USB device. This is what's going to let us boot from our new Ventoy USB drive. So this is the option I'm choosing, USB device, and it's loading. And we can see the Ventoy menu. Now, at the moment, we only have one option for Ventoy, and this is for Linux Mint. So we can see here our Linux Mint ISO file. Of course, if we had other ISO files on our Ventoy disk, we would see them here as well. But in this case, we want to install Linux Mint, so this is the option I'm going to choose, linuxmint.iso. And we can see that there are several options to start Linux Mint. I'm going to go with the first one, boot in normal mode. And we can see the Linux Mint start menu. So I'm going to choose the first option, start Linux Mint 22.2 Cinnamon 64-bit. And Linux Mint is now loading. Now it will take a while for it to load, and once again it depends on the speed of your USB flash drive. If it's a bit slower, it might take a bit longer, but eventually it will load. And the Linux Mint live session loaded. From here we can install Linux Mint, so let's choose this option. I'm going to double click on it, and we need to choose a language for Linux Mint. I'll go with English. For the keyboard layout, I'm going to go with English US. We can install multimedia codecs, so let's check this checkbox, then click on Continue. And as you can see, the installer identified that the computer currently has Windows Boot Manager on it, and it's asking us what would we like to do. So we have three options. We can install Linux Mint alongside Windows Boot Manager. And as you can see here, you can choose which operating system you want each time the computer starts up. This is exactly what we want, and this will basically set up the dual boot for us. If you want to completely remove Windows and only install Linux Mint, choose this option, erase disk and install Linux Mint. And you can also arrange and configure the partitions yourself, and to do that you need to choose something else. But for a simple working dual boot setup, the best option is to choose the first option, install Linux Mint alongside Windows. This is what I'm going to go with, so let's click on Install Now. And it's showing a summary of the partitions that are going to be affected. I'm completely fine with that, so let's click on Continue. We need to choose a time zone, then Continue. We need to provide a name, a computer's name, a username, and a password. And here I'm going to choose this option, login automatically, so I won't have to type in my password whenever I restart the computer. Then we can click on Continue. And Linux Mint is now being installed. This is quite a lengthy process, and once again it depends on the speed of your USB flash drive. In most cases it takes anywhere between 10 to 40 minutes. I'll be back when it's done. Okay, and the Linux Mint installation is done. We can continue testing or we can restart now, and this is what I'm going to do, so restart now. And we need to remove the installation medium, then press enter. So this is the time to unplug the USB flash drive, then press enter. And now when the computer loads, we are shown this grab boot menu. From here we can either choose Linux Mint, which is this option, or we can choose the Windows Boot Manager. Let's choose Linux Mint. And Linux Mint loaded, and we get the Welcome to Linux Mint screen. Let's close this one and let's restart the computer again. So from here I'm going to choose Shut Down, then Restart. And this time I'm going to choose this option, the Windows Boot Manager option. So let's start this option. And we can see that Windows loaded normally and we can use it as usual.